the board for the Fort Bend Chamber of Commerce. And on behalf of the Fort Bend Chamber of Commerce, I'd like to welcome all of you here and tell you how delighted the Fort Bend Chamber of Commerce is to sponsor this epic event, Imperial Holly's 150th birthday as a role model business in Fort Bend County. And to begin, I would like to first recognize some distinguished guests in the audience, and I'll start with our board of directors. And I would like to certainly recognize one of our distinguished directorates, and that's Mr. James Kemper. Mr. Kemper, would you please stand? Thank you. As I call your names, would you please stand as I recognize you? Louis Garvin, Les Newton, D. Cook, Mike Casey, Dr. Raj Chopra, Rick Farrell, Russell Jones, Sam Cruzy, Kay Parker, Adela Pendergrass, Carolyn Reed, Joanne Stevens, Helen Sullivan, Mary Gail Brunley, and from our Chairman's Council, we have Holly Harris, R.C. Hanna, Bob Hanna, Brent Diaz, Don Russell, and from our past presidents, Bob Hebert, Clyde Jacks, and Charlie Howard. Thank you all for coming. I'd like to recognize our distinguished public elected officials, and as I call your name, would you please stand and hold your applause until I have them all read. Judge Roy Cordes, Mayor Lee Duggan, Mayor John Knox, Mayor Lupe Uristi, Mayor William Ponsick, Mayor Longseer from Thompson's, and from the county commissioners we have Bud O'Shields, Grady Prestige, Alton B. Presley. County clerk we have Diane Wilson, county tax assessor collector Marcia Gaines. From the judges we have Judge Larry Wagenbach, Judge Brady Elliott, and Judge Walter McMeans. The district attorney John Healy, Justice of Peace Precinct 2 Joel Klauser. And from the city of Sugar Land City Council, we have Manuel Reyes, Norm Prasadik, James Davidson, Clyde Jacks, and Bill Tallis. From the City Council of Rosenberg, we have Dorothy Ryan, Rita Drawback from the School Board Fort Bend ISD, and David Novati from the School Board of Lamar Consolidated ISD. And we have the chairman of the Republican Party of Fort Bend, Eric Thode, and elected officials representing our congressmen and senators, Janice Reynolds from Congressman Tom DeLay's office, Joey Guillaume Fortone from Congressman Mike Andrews, Velma McKenzie from Senator Rodney Ellis, and Vicki O'Donnell from Representative Jim Talley. Thank you all for coming, and we appreciate your attendance. If a member of our directorate, Mr. Kempner, will come forward, I would like to read a resolution that I have for him on behalf of the Fort Bend Chamber. Mr. Kempner, our resolution reads, whereas in 1843, Imperial Sugar Company was founded as a commercial raw sugar grinding mill located on the S.M. Williams Plantation along the banks of Oyster Creek, in a community which later became known as Sugar Land. Whereas in 1993, Imperial Sugar is celebrating its sesquicentennial, 150 years of change, growth, and progress on the same site where the company was started in 1843. Whereas over the past 150 years, Imperial Sugar has been dedicated and committed to the economic growth of Sugar Land and Fort Bend County, and now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Directors of the Fort Bend Chamber of Commerce that Imperial Sugar Company is hereby recognized and commended on this occasion of its 150th anniversary for its outstanding contributions to the city of Sugar Land and Fort Bend County. Thank you so much. For your outstanding contributions to the city of Sugar Land, Fort Bend County, and for being a role model business for 150 years in Fort Bend County. Thank you. very much.
Thanks very much.
Now I would like to introduce our distinguished Master of Ceremonies, Mr. Ron Stone. He is the president of Stone Films of Texas. He is a household name in Houston. Mr. Stone spent over 30 years broadcasting the news on Houston television stations KHOU and KPRC. He's seen each week as the host and writer of the highly regarded Eyes of Texas program, which airs in Houston and around the state. In September of 1992, Ron retired from the daily grind of a scheduled newscast to devote time to his production company. A gentleman, ladies and gentlemen, who needs no introduction. Please help me welcome Mr. Ron Stone.
Tony said, I feel like I shouldn't give you an introduction. You're almost as old as the sugar company. Thanks, Tony, a lot. I'm honored to be here, to be a part of this piece of history. I spend an awful lot of my time reading about Texas history and reporting on Texas history and trying to write it. Rarely do I have an opportunity to see history in the making. But 150 years of production by a great Texas company is indeed of significance. And that is proven, of course, by the fact that on a less than perfect day, we have a full house and then some. So we're delighted that you came to take part in this event. We've already introduced most of the people in the house. I'll introduce the rest of them. Those of you who are not introduced this evening, I'm sorry about that, but that's the way these things go. It is my job now to introduce you to some officials from Imperial Holly, and I'll ask them to stand and remain standing, and when we get through with all of them, then you can give them a round of applause, since they and the people who came before them are the reason that we're here. I'll begin with Fred Morrill. Fred, will you please stand wherever you are, back over there. Hal Meckler, Bill Schwainer, I hope I got your name right, Ken Anderson, Bill Gordon, Bob Atwood, Bill Little, Bill Krochak, Brian Harrison, Roy Henderson, Jim Skiles, Bill Coker, Al Bartello, Robert C. Hanna, James Kemper, and I.H. Kempner III. Ladies and gentlemen, the officials from Imperial Holly. Before the afternoon ends, we're going to talk about things like 50 billion pounds of sugar. We're going to talk about education. We're going to talk about history, about far-sighted people, and about the past and about the future. And then the good news is we top it all off with cake and coffee. Let me introduce now a native of Sugar Land who grew up in the Imperial. He spent 53 years in the sugar business, from summer work at the plant as a young boy to the president of the company and his retirement in 1973. And Robert Armstrong has written this book called Sugar Land and the Imperial Sugar Company. Those of you who do not have a copy, I am told that if you're extra nice to him, he'll sell you a copy outside and even autograph it personally for you. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Robert Armstrong.
Looking around at the crowd as they came in today, I see a good many people who heard this same 10-minute summary of 150 years about 3 weeks ago at the dedication of the City Hall. So in deference to you people, this time I'll start with 1993 and go backward. I doubt that I can make it. According to the history and the lore, during the Texas Revolution, Texas War for Independence in 1836, General Santa Anna and the Mexican Army very nearly did in the Imperial Sugar Company before it ever got off the ground. As Santa Anna chased Sam Houston across Fort Bend County, one thing he wanted to do was destroy the Williams Plantation. The Williams Plantation was a 4,400-acre Mexican land grant at what is now Sugar Land. Williams was Stephen F. Austin's right-hand man and had been active in financing and supplying this Texas Revolution, and Santa Anna knew it, and he knew Williams. So he set out on this course to destroy the Williams Plantation. But maps being what they were in the old days and weather being bad, Santa Anna apparently, I guess he zigged when he should have zagged, and he missed Sugar Land by 4 miles and completely destroyed the Stafford Plantation. Burned all the buildings, killed the animals, took all the corn, and really completely destroyed it. Anyway, he missed Williams, and Williams survived. And 7 years later, in 1843, the Williams family built a raw sugar mill, a large commercial raw sugar mill on the exact site where the Imperial Sugar Company is located today, thus giving Imperial the distinction of being the oldest business in Texas, still operating on the same site continuously for 150 years, still making the identical same products, sugar and a byproduct, molasses. They operated this mill for 9 years, and then they sold it to an interesting couple from Brazoria County, 2 young men named Kyle and Terry, who had made a trip out to the West Coast in the 1849 gold rush and really struck it rich. They came back wealthy, and they bought the Williams Plantation and added 8,000 acres to it. That gave them 12,500 acres, which was a sizable plantation in those days. They brought in 150 slaves. They brought this railroad, which is now the Southern Pacific, right through Sugar Land in front of the raw sugar mill, and they built 2 really large plantation-style homes of the type that you saw in Gone with the Wind in the movies. Really a high-class place. During the 1850s, the Fort Bend County sugar planters prospered, but it all came to an abrupt halt when the Civil War started. Terry was killed in the first year of the war, leading Terry's Texas Rangers in a charge. Kyle died a couple of years later, and the heirs attempted to run the plantation the way it had been run, but they couldn't do it. The restrictions of the Civil War and the loss of the slaves after the war, the advent of the Reconstruction era, pretty much did them in. And in 1875, Kyle and Terry heirs sold the 12,500 acre property to a man named Ed Cunningham. Cunningham added 8,000 acres. He brought it up to 20,000 acres, and then he created what became known as the Hellhole of the Brazos. We have 2 letters in the Sugar Company file referring to Sugar Land as the Hellhole of the Brazos. Cunningham solved the labor problem by leasing the entire convict population of the state of Texas. And some of them he subleased out, but he kept 300 to 400 in barracks just south of where the sugar refinery sits now. The convicts were used strictly on the plantation in the farming end of the business. To run the raw sugar mill, he used itinerant labor because the mill only ran 3 months out of the year, October, November, December, when the crops came in. So he used these itinerant laborers, which the plant manager describes in a letter, which the sugar company has, as hobos, bums, drunks, deserters from the Navy, the scum of the earth. The only other paying business in town was a big hall a mile west of the sugar refinery, which had a dance hall, the gambling place, and a house of prostitution. And the plant manager in his letter said it was a source of constant absenteeism. You never knew how many people were going to show up for the work on any given morning. Anyway, the place was pretty much the dregs at that time. Cunningham borrowed $1.5 million and built Texas' first cane sugar refinery. This was to make raw sugar as opposed to the dark brown sugar which had been made in the sugar mills before. But he overextended, he extended himself a little too far, couldn't pay his note payments, and by 1902 he was in the hands of the receivers, who were mostly his relatives who had loaned him money. In 1908, the entire place was bought. There was 2 raw sugar mills, a sugar refinery, and at that time 18,000 acres of land was bought by an interesting partnership of the Kemper family from Galveston and Mr. W.T. Eldridge of Eagle Lake. I say it was an interesting partnership because they were totally different people. Mr. I.H. Kemper, Danny and Jim's grandfather, headed the very well-known and admired Kemper family of Galveston. They had numerous business holdings throughout the state and elsewhere. They were very active in civic and religious affairs and were a totally respected group of educated, erudite people. Mr. Eldridge, on the other hand, from Eagle Lake, had never gone to see, he ran away from home when he was age 12. As he said, I never did a lesson in school. Had no education whatsoever. He killed 5 men in gunfights. He was tried twice for murder. Had built 2 company towns over on the Colorado River and managed them. And he and Mr. Kemper went in partnership, 50-50 partnership. Mr. Kemper to furnish the financing, Mr. Eldridge to move to Sugar Land with his family and build a company town and run the businesses. Mr. Kemper's mother told Mr. Kemper, I wish you wouldn't go into business with that man. He'll kill us all in our beds someday. But the partnership worked. What they wanted to do, they saw an opportunity to run the refinery 12 months out of the year instead of 3 months. They were going to do that by importing Cuban raw sugar through the port of Galveston by rail up to Sugar Land. And they wanted to redo the farms. They wanted to level them and drain them and irrigate them and make this a first-class place. In order to do that, of course, the first thing they had to do was get rid of the convicts and the transient labor, which they did. They brought in contract labor and tenant farmers. Started this in 1908, about 1923, which incidentally was the first time I ever saw Sugar Land. 1923, they had a complete company town, 435 new homes, gravel streets, concrete sidewalks, and concrete curbs and gutters on the streets. They had an excellent school system, a brand new accredited school system, 4 churches. They had a hospital, a very well-equipped hospital, and a Medicare plan which Hillary Clinton would envy. For $1.50 a month, they took care of all your health needs, everything. False teeth, eyeglasses, wooden legs, hospital, medication, everything. Incidentally, they had 2 doctors there when I was there in high school. One of them was named Deathridge, and the other was named Slaughter. One day I was talking to Danny Kemper about that, and he said it was too bad they couldn't have found a 3rd one named Lazarus. Credit Danny on that. But they had any number of businesses. I won't read this list because it's just about as long as it could get. But they had a John Deere agency, they had a paper mill, an acid plant, a vinegar plant, a pickle plant, a Sealy mattress company, feed mill, cotton gin, a warehouse, an abattoir, a meat canning plant, a yam dehydrating plant. On the farms they had beef and dairy cattle, they were farming cotton, corn, alfalfa, 27 vegetables, strawberries and all kinds of things. And alfalfa dehydrating plant. Then they had all those stores. They had people in those days, we had a mud road to Houston. Mud road in Richmond, so you had to be self-sufficient. They had the Imperial Mercantile, which was enormous, 3-story general store. They had the Imperial Bank, telephone company, a drugstore, a meat market, a vegetable market, a bakery, a restaurant, a shoe repair, a barber shop, telephone company, a hotel, an ice cream plant, a dairy, and an ice plant, just to name a few. An interesting thing, when you lived in this company town, you got one bill. You got one bill for your rent, your utilities, everything you ate, the gasoline for your car, just everything. You got one bill. They made no attempt to gouge the people. I talked to Mr. Kemper one day about that, and he said, Bob, it wouldn't have made much sense to spend millions of dollars, as we did, building a high-class company town to attract hard-working, trustworthy people, and then charge them too much on a 5-cent can of beans. He said it just wouldn't have made any sense. So it was not the usual company town arrangement. I speak of it as what I call I can't think what I call it. I call it a benevolent dictatorship, which is a pretty good description of the way the Kempers ran this place. In 1932, Mr. Eldridge died, and Mr. I.H. Kemper took over the active management of everything in Sugar Land. They owned everything in this 18,000 acre except the Southern Pacific Railroad tracks. In 1946, at the end of World War II, the Kemper family bought out the Eldridge heirs and became 95% owners of everything in the company town, in the farms. They set about immediately rebuilding and enlarging the sugar refinery. Couldn't get materials during World War II, so they were behind. And for 5 years, they really rebuilt and enlarged and modernized and automated the sugar company. And the sugar company, as a consequence, prospered, particularly in the southwest part of the country. We became the leading sugar, still are. By 1959, the Kempers became concerned that we might be taken over by one of the adjoining communities by being annexed. And they incorporated the town. We elected a local mayor and a local city council, appointed a planning committee, and turned the town over to them. In 1972, as the Southwest Freeway approached what is now Sugar Creek, you could see that the days of farming this land were over, and the Kempners set about finding people who would develop this in a first-class style. They didn't want a bunch of miscellaneous developers dumping their junk on each other, so they found 2 people. The first was Jake Kamen and his associates, who built Sugar Creek, and they did a marvelous job, as everybody in this area knows. The second was the Gerald Hines interests, who bought the remaining 8,000 acres of land and are still actively developing Sweetwater and Sugarville and Sugar Lakes and First Colony and those things. The next thing that happened of extreme interest to us was when Denny Kemper and Bob Hammond worked out a scheme to buy the Holly Sugar Company, which owned 8 beet sugar factories in the western part of the United States. They created the Imperial Holly Corporation, in which the Kempners have a 60% interest. They're still controlling things as they have since 1908. I think that's a heck of a family record. And been managed up here after Mr. Kempner by 2 of his sons and now 2 of his grandsons. So it's on the right track. It seems to me that this company is 150 years old and still going strong, I think.
Thank you very much, Mr. Armstrong. The book, incidentally, is filled with remarkable stories. I read an awful lot of Texas histories of counties and communities, unfortunately more than I care to remember. And it's very good, and I recommend it to you. Let me introduce you to someone who's been in this community for 28 years. He's serving in his 3rd term as mayor now. It's my honor and privilege to introduce the mayor of the city of Sugar Land, the Honorable Lee Duggan. Lee?
Thank you, Ron. I appreciate that. Bob, you're a tough act to follow. I'm going to have to get used to doing this or something. Bob was a lead speaker at our City Hall dedication a few weeks ago, and I followed Bob and sat, and I was just as interested and amazed, and will continue to be, at the story of Imperial Sugar Company as every time I hear it. As a representative of the city of Sugar Land and all of our citizens that we have here in our city that we're so proud of, I would just like to tell the people of Imperial Sugar what they mean to this city and how great this city is thanks to them. We will never, we talked about it a few minutes ago, and as time passes, I hope that the city will always, as some of us go into other jobs, will always remember the start that we got. I go back to the story that I hear psychologists and people talk about little children. Some of the important years of a child's life is in their infancy, when they're first getting started and beginning to grow up. And certainly the city of Sugar Land had an excellent start. You just can't say enough about what was done to build Sugar Land to what it is. Today, people in my job and our city council and others that have served on the city, we really had a good start, and my hope is that people like myself and our council will be able to maintain the quality and the start that we had to begin with. We're thankful for that. You all have done an excellent job. Tonight I'd like to read a proclamation. We have several that you'll be hearing of tonight. The proclamation is to the 150th anniversary of Imperial Sugar Company, It starts out as this year marks the 150th anniversary of refined sugar in the city of Sugar Land, Texas. Sugar refining was established in 1843, and it goes on with the history of which you've said, and there are quite a few whereases that go along with that I'm going to pass up. But the meat and potatoes and the rice and the sugar of this is that now therefore I, Lee Duggan, Mayor of the City of Sugar Land, Texas, do hereby express appreciation to Imperial Sugar Company for the many civic and economic benefits that our community has enjoyed over the years, and extend on behalf of all of our citizens our best wishes for many years of continued success in the future. In recognition of this most noteworthy milestone, I do hereby proclaim the week of May the 9th through the 15th, 1993 as Imperial Sugar Week in our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me introduce now a man who spent a great deal of time in civic endeavors and political activism in this community, the newly elected Fort Bend County Judge, Roy Cordes, Jr. Cordes.
Thank you, sir. I also have several resolutions to go into on behalf of Fort Bend County, our state representative, Representative Tallis, our senators from Fort Bend County, and the governor of the state of Texas. But before I do that, I would like to maybe take a personal moment, if you'll indulge me for a second, and say as a second-generation Sugar Land native, someone who's experienced the good fortune and the benefits of the leadership, vision, and civic pride that Imperial Holly, now in Imperial Sugar, has given this city and its residents over the last, of course I haven't been around 150 years, but over this period, when my mother was born in Sugar Land and I as well, I'd just like to simply say thank you. We appreciate everything you've done in the past and look forward to working with you in the future. I've got a proclamation from Fort Bend County, and I'm going to do like the mayor did and paraphrase some of it to really go into all the whereases. But it starts out the same way, whereas in 1843, along the banks of Oyster Creek, the Williams Plantation began making sugar, and Imperial Sugar began its first century of existence. It concludes by whereas Imperial Sugar Company has made outstanding contributions to the growth of the city of Sugar Land, Fort Bend County, and the state of Texas by its hard work, foresight, and struggle by generations of dedicated people. Now, therefore, I, Roy Cordes, Jr., County Judge of Fort Bend County, Texas, hereby proclaim the week of May 9th to the 15th, 1993, as Imperial Sugar Week in Fort Bend County, Texas. State Representative Tallis has a resolution that was introduced into the House of the state of Texas. It again also has, as Lee said, a lot of whereases. I would like to read the last one, that whereas the Imperial Sugar Company remains firmly dedicated to the local community of Sugar Land and to the principles of integrity, fairness, and quality, and its many outstanding achievements are indeed worthy of special legislative recognition. Now therefore be it resolved that the House of Representatives of the 73rd Texas Legislature hereby congratulate the officers and employees of the Imperial Sugar Company on the occasion of the company's 150th anniversary and commend them on their outstanding contributions to the community of Sugar Land, to the county of Fort Bend, and to the state of Texas. And be it further resolved that an official copy of this resolution be prepared for the officers and employees of the Imperial Sugar Company as an expression of highest esteem by the Texas House of Representatives. And it's signed by the Speaker of the House, Pete Lane. We have one also that's a Senate resolution. It states, resolved that the Senate of the state of Texas, 73rd Legislature, hereby commend Imperial Sugar Company on the momentous occasion of its 150th anniversary, and be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be prepared for this dynamic company as a memento of this grand occasion, with best wishes for continued success in the years to come. And it's signed by Bob Bullock, President of the Senate and our Lieutenant Governor. And it's also signed by the 3 senators from Fort Bend County, Ken Armbruster, Buster Brown, and Rodney Ellis. And we have also from Governor Richards a letter stating, "Greetings, it is my pleasure to congratulate Imperial Sugar on the occasion of its 150th anniversary. Imperial's enduring commitment to quality has made it one of our state's most successful and longest-lasting companies. It has contributed immeasurably to the Texas economy and to the communities of Sugar Land and Fort Bend County. Imperial Sugar is a true Texas success story and an outstanding example of other growing businesses. Congratulations and best wishes for the future. Sincerely, Ann Richards, Governor, State of Texas."
Thank you, Judge. It's my pleasure now to present a whirlwind of a man, one of those people who seems to be everywhere at once. His work with the United Way is legendary. When I was working with him, behind his back we called him Sweet Bob, so I guess it's okay to call him that to his face now. In 1955, after he left the Army, he joined the Imperial sales staff and rose through the ranks to become the President and the Chief Executive Officer. Ladies and gentlemen, Sweet Bob, Robert Hannon.
Oh, what a nice guy. Actually, we had a lot of fun. He said this evening, he said, "It's great to be with you again on an occasion when we're not trying to raise any money." Well, I said, some of my other training is you don't get a crowd together like this without passing a hat. You never can tell. And he really cleans things up, makes a guy feel good. Sweet Bob. Actually, what they said was that SOB from Sugar Land, and then when I caught him at it, they said, "That's sweet old Bob." Well, it's good to have perspective, and it's good to be able to look back, I guess, from the eminence of a few gray hairs, and it's been quite a time. And this is a time for excitement, celebration. I mean, actually, we're celebrating an event that never has happened before. There never, ever has been a company 150 years old in the state of Texas that can say that it's been doing the same thing continuously in the same place. But we have. Well, that's not all there is to it. It's a story of progress and growth. And we're proud of the things that have been said about us and to us this evening by the Chamber of Commerce, the City of Sugar Land, County of Fort Bend, representatives of the state of Texas. That makes us feel mighty good. But you know that throughout all of this long history of our progress, that Bob Armstrong so eloquently recites, it's been a history of progress and growth with the community, the county, the state, as well as the company. From the early plantation days that he referred to the days of the company town, really that's not so long ago. I can remember that. It was company town when I came here. A darn good one. We had about one of everything, like Bob said. We had one constable. Well, when he wasn't being constable, he was head of the labor department for the sugar company. We had one fire truck. It parked in the company garage next to the refinery. We had one gas station, had one grocery store. We had one of about everything. But the thing that we had was togetherness, mutual respect, admiration, encouragement. The company encouraged the city, the company encouraged the county, and the county and the city and the state encouraged Imperial when we grew. Yeah. Not just a short time ago, Sugar Land was a community of a few hundred people, a few hundred homes, and the home of the Imperial Sugar Company, a privately held regional processor of cane sugar. Today is a little bit different. A thriving community that every once in a while I have to blink twice to realize where I am. A home to tens of thousands of people, prosperous, energetic, forward-moving people. One of the fastest growing communities, and certainly the fastest growing county in Texas, and one of the fastest in the United States. And now we're the Imperial Holly Corporation, not just the Imperial Sugar Company. I've said that Denny and I set out on a determined path a few years ago to acquire the Holly Sugar Corporation, and we did, for a lot of reasons. But up until about 20 years before that time, we not only referred to ourselves as the oldest business in Texas, but the only sugar company in Texas. And then, wouldn't you know it, the Holly Sugar Company came to Hereford and built a sugar factory. And that offended us. It took us 20 years to get our reputation back, but we're the only sugar business in Texas. Well, it's been a lot of fun. We made a lot of progress. 25 years ago, I was pleased to participate in the celebration of our 125th anniversary. Quite a time. Marked it with a plaque in the refinery yard, put a historical marker on the side of the char house, and we unveiled our 23 billionth pound of refined sugar. Quite an occasion. Well, today we're celebrating our 150th anniversary, 25 years later. And in so doing, and in commemoration, we're going to unveil our 50th billionth pound of refined sugar. Well, it's kind of like a lot of other things in the United States when you talk about growth. It doesn't just progress, it's geometric. It took us 125 years to make 23 billion pounds of sugar. It only took us 25 more to make another more than 23 billion pounds of sugar. That's growth, but that's what's been going on at Imperial. We're commemorating this wonderful partnership with the community, and the county, and the state, and we have some plaques to present to do that. Two, as a matter of fact, well, as a matter of straight fact, three. Two of them are just alike. The first two we're going to present to the city of Sugar Land. They're inscribed the same. Our hope is that one will appear in the new City Hall and the other in the Civic Center. And they say that on the occasion of our 150th anniversary, Imperial Sugar Company is pleased to honor the city of Sugar Land, Texas, for its significant contributions to our company, its historic past, and we present it this day, May the 5th, 1993. I'll unveil it. There we are. And also to recognize the support, the encouragement that we have had from the Fort Bend Chamber of Commerce. Another plaque inscribed on the occasion of our 150th anniversary. Imperial Sugar Company is pleased to honor the Fort Bend County Chamber of Commerce in recognition of many contributions to our milestone achievement. Presented on May the 5th, 1993. Then I have one more that's not on the script. My one and only, Emily, is active in all sorts of things, mainly looking after me, but she seems to find time to look after most of the animals in the community, this one and the larger community to our north. And she does some work with the city of Sugar Land. and was quite impressed, as we all should be, quite proud of our new City Hall. And the last time she was there, David Neely approached her and said, "You know, I have seen a picture in the refinery offices of the refinery complex, and Oyster Creek, and a flight of balloons passing over the city. You people have used that in your advertisements, and it's just wonderful, and it reminds me of the way we have worked together and the progress that we are making together, and if you could find it, we'd sure like to have one of those pictures for City Hall." We found it. Here it is. On the bottom, there's an appropriate mark, little brass plate, and I'll read that to you. It says, "Imperial Sugar Company and the City of Sugar Land, hand in hand we sold." And we have been for 150 years.
Thank you, Mr. Hanna. Now let me introduce a man who carries a proud name, steeped in the deep tradition of Texas. Isaac Kemper III has served as chairman of the board of Imperial Holly since 1971. He's also a director of the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas, Houston, and the Methodist Hospital. They told me I could call him this. I suppose it's all right. Here's Denny Kemper. Okay.
Thank you, Ron. As you've heard, Jim and my grandfather, I.H. Kemper, on behalf of his mother and 7 brothers and sisters, made the investment in Sugar Land, I think in 1906, but not 1908. I think they exercised an option in 1905, but made the purchase in 06, according to your book. That's the Bible. That's the Bible I use. Our great-grandfather, an immigrant from Poland, came to this country at a very young age, worked as a laborer in New York, wound up as an itinerant peddler in East Texas, made some progress, opened a little store in Cold Springs up by Lake Livingston, and then after the Civil War moved to Galveston. But he had an intense love and respect for education, which he passed on to his children. My grandfather was no less respectful. My father was away at boarding school. He would write him every week. And I've seen those letters, and there is constant complaining to my father about his grades, his time away from school, his lack of interest, and his lack of work. It's very similar to any of us, I think, who've had children. But it was constant. One of the first items of the to-do list after the acquisition was to hire a schoolmaster and provide a school room. It was a single-room facility. For without a school, Sugar Land had no hope of being the kind of community that he wanted and needed if he was going to be able to attract the quality of people that he knew was necessary. The one-room schoolhouse in Sugar Land was subsequently enlarged to a combination school and church building. In 1918, after 2 years of construction, a very elaborate school complex was dedicated. It consisted of 11 stucco buildings, one of which was a 500-seat auditorium, and it even had a movie screen and a movie projector, which was quite something in those days. The auditorium at Lakeview Elementary still is in use. And the cost of this facility, and the cost of the early one, and the cost of the teachers was all underwritten by the Kemper-Eldridge Partnership. That was before Independent School District. And when I heard that the Fort Bend Independent School District was going to name a new high school after my grandfather, I was naturally
quite proud. All of us, all in the family, were intensely proud of this honor. Not only proud, but I thought very appropriate because of his intense love and respect for education. And on this occasion of Imperial's 150th birthday and almost 90 years of Kemper involvement, I'm very honored to present to Mr. Wayne Emerson, principal of I.H. Kemper High School, a bronze replica of my grandfather. This on the plaque, which I'll take the cover off in a second, it says, given to Kemper High School in remembrance of the school's namesake, I.H. Kemper, 1873-1967, founder of the Imperial Sugar Company on the occasion of Imperial's 150th anniversary, May 5, 1993, and presented by the Kemper family in appreciation of Kemper High School's commitment to excellence.
Perhaps the greatest promise of that entrepreneurial vision that started in either 1905 or 6 or 8 is the quality of these young people that stand before you, because that vision, that entrepreneurial vision that started the company gave rise to the community, and here is the community, the best and the brightest that we have. And who knows in 150 years where these young people will lead us. Just think of a group that would have stood before you in 1908 as students, how different these students are. First of all, there probably wouldn't have been any girls. So our hope, I think, like Mr. Kepner's hope, as a vision, is that these young people will carry forward that promise, that vision, that hope within themselves to better their world, their society, their community. We very proudly carry on that tradition of the Kemper family. We'd like to thank them, and we'd also like to say something on behalf of the students.
The ideal to give is better than to receive is alive and well at Kemper High School. And on this note, we at Kemper would be greatly honored, excuse me, for Mr. James Kemper, Mr. I.H. Kemper, to receive these gifts as a token of our appreciation for everything that their family has done for our great city. On behalf of I.H. Kemper High School, I graciously accept this plaque, and we at I.H. Kemper High School are very honored, and will do everything in our power to continue the ideals that Mr. Kemper has set forth for us. Thank you.
Amidst all the unveiling that took place, Bob, you forgot to unveil the sugar. Come on, come do that. You want? You can do it. You can. I'll bet a nickel that's what's under there. Think so? If it's not, I'm wrong, and just a guess on my part.
You never have been wrong in your whole life.
Right as a raindrop, there it is.
There's nothing that has not been unveiled in Fort Bend County. We have a marvelous cake here. It's too pretty to eat, so what we've done is slice a replica into all kinds of pieces. You're invited to go in and have cake and coffee in the other room. The most important thing is, thank you very much for coming, and our congratulations to Imperial, and we'll all meet here 150 years from now, okay?